Salute and welcome to Real Mad TV, where you always get the Mac reaction, but sometimes I come in peace. I am sad to bring you some terrible news of the passing of Sheila Jackson Lee. She was a Texas Democrat representative. You know what I'm saying? She advocated a lot for gun control. You know what I'm saying? I really didn't get a chance to really get into her a lot. You know what I'm saying? I seen her battle a lot on the Congress floor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I crack my little jokes about her hair and stuff like that. But other than that, you know what I'm saying? Just off the small things I know she did great work and she had a good heart for what she was doing. So what I'm gonna do is dedicate a little bit of time to this Democrat representative, you know what I'm saying? And salute this black woman for all her great accomplishments. So let's jump into a couple of her little Congress disputes here, you know what I'm saying? And she will be missed on the floor.
I'm going to speak right now. You have 2 minutes to the distinguished gentlelady from Texas, a member of the Judiciary Committee, Ms. Jackson Lee.
The gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I would say, here we go again. For those of us who've served in the United States Congress, this is here we go again. This is legislation that is attempting to be wrapped in mercy, that is without mercy. First of all, it is without fact. It is extremely important to know that if you are here in the United States Congress, you know the history, because we've already passed the bipartisan Born Alive Infant Protection Act, which reiterates the fact that it is illegal to interfere with a newborn. They are protected from both intentional harm by healthcare performers and harm from medical negligence. Plain and simple, period at the end of the sentence. So why are we here today? We're here today for news clips. We're here today for quotes and condemnation of that other side of the aisle that wants to be reckless with the life of a child. I can assure you that those of us who have given birth, those of us who have lost in the birth process, are extreme lovers of those wonderful opportunities of life. I refuse and reject a condemnation of my personal self because I believe these decisions are with a God, the woman's God, the family's God, her faith, doctors, and of course, the persons who are part of the medical profession. I have article after article that talks about the tragedy of partial birth abortion, the name used more than a decade ago. You see, they always find creative names to be able to be criminalized. We heard from a member from a rural community that said, how dare you grab up the child, put them in an ambulance to take them hundreds of miles away from that family. Or maybe the family who found out that the multiple abnormalities of their child would not allow them to live. And they had waited 8 years for this wonderful baby. The decisions, unfortunately, neither life nor death come easily for these children. There's a painful existence marked by periods of breathing cessation and seizures when they are born. Because of my OB was unable to get a good image of the brain until the 13th week, we understand that these are personal decisions. We understand that these are painful decisions. So I stand with those families. I refuse to condemn those families, and I refuse to be merciless. I'm giving mercy and voting against this legislation, voting against it now.
Gentlewoman's time has.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's been 38 years. And I rise with enthusiasm on introducing H.R. 40, the Commission to Study Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. I'm pleased to reintroduce it and to acknowledge to my friends and colleagues that it was first introduced in 1989 after the implementation of the American Civil Liberties Act that provided compensation to Japanese Americans. But H.R. 40 does not focus on all of that only. It focuses on the study of slavery and the understanding of what would be the next steps to end the vast disparities in the African American community, even today in 2023. And so this introduction allows for a study, an analysis, and action. I'm pleased of the more than 350 organizations, CEOs, scholars, state and local officials, members of Congress who have been supportive of understanding the era of slavery in this country. The 13th Amendment may have ended slavery, but the disparities exist. Let us pass H.R. 40, the Commission to study slavery and develop reparation proposals. I yield back.
Ms. Jackson Lee.
Gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman very much. Mr. Cole, I remember after 9/11 when we all worked together to ensure the protection of the American people through the Patriot Act and dealing with the FISA courts. We worked together because truth is important. And so I just want to simply be on the floor today to speak about truth. I work with my school boards across my district. I know that there's not one school board that does not welcome a parent to hear their voices, because obviously they are partners in the education of our precious children. But in September 2021, the National School Board Association sent Mr. Biden a letter pointing to a trend of violence and threats against school officials. It included a brief reference to Mr. Smith's arrest incident and a long list of examples with a footnote to a news account of the meeting that mentioned the arrest in passing, but without details like his daughter's daughter's assault. But the point is that this came about because there were threats against school board members. And so can we have truth here? And that's what I rise to bring to the attention of this body as relates to this committee and this select committee. Is it going to be truth-finding, or is this going to be a committee that is going to collect information or otherwise investigate citizens of the United States and gives the most right-wing members who may have an axe to grind to participate? Or is it going to be fair? Is it going to be a gross misuse of power with dangerous implications, unintended consequences, and could potentially expose general operations of our national security infrastructure, which will put American lives at risk? Let me be very clear. Russia is one of our most dangerous adversaries. We're in the middle of a national security quagmire. And to undermine that through investigations of the FBI and Central Intelligence is going to be extremely dangerous. The passage of this resolution would also give MAGA Republicans the ability to interfere in ongoing criminal investigations, including those investigating the extremists.
The lady is recognized for 60 seconds.
I thank you. Including those investigating that day that some declared was just a bunch of tourists on January 6, 2021. I've worked with my friends on the other side of the aisle. I've worked with Mr. Roy. But is this a question of truth? That is the issue that we stand here today. In this country, no one is above the law. And to suggest that some people should be because they don't agree with the force of law being applied to their activities is contrary to the very fabric of fairness, justice, and equality that America was founded on. Let me, as an aside, indicate that we know what has been in the headlines. 10 documents found in a locked closet that Mr. Biden may have had. Well, you know what, Mr. Speaker? The process of the law is proceeding. The call was made, the documents were surrendered, if you will, and the process goes forward under the laws of this land. No one denied it, no one rejected it, no one did not in any way come to say anything other than follow the law. On the other hand, in Mar-a-Lago, no law was found. I ask my colleagues to consider the truth
lady's time has expired.
And vote against this
Gentleman from
particular
Massachusetts
resolution.
will reserve.
Ms. Jackson Lee for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I guess the opportunity to be privileged to serve in the United States Congress with a little over 10,000 members over the decades and for the years of service that I have given at the privilege and at the decision of my constituents allows me to look over the landscape of the journey that we have taken. I was here when medical procedures for parents who wanted nothing more than a healthy baby were then characterized as a criminal act and called partial birth abortion, when a mother had to make a decision with her God, her doctor, and her family. I remember the hearings in the Judiciary Committee where mothers were crying because of the medical procedure that was necessary to save their life. We've now come full circle, and the extremists want to again demonize parents who are desperate for a healthy child. I've seen this before. Extremist views criminalizing a medical choice that has to be made, criminalizing abortion from east to west and north to south. I will not have it. I know that this is a most personal decision and one that families do not want to make. But as a person of faith, I believe it should be that woman, that family, that God, and that doctor. And so unfortunately, today we will have the effort to criminalize these actions of doctors. You see, I come from a state where the state legislature and governor passed a bounty hunter bill to go after doctors, nurses that would be giving medical care to innocent women and to individuals who were seeking that care. How outrageous in a constitutional democracy that you want to injure people, you want to undermine doctors and undermine nurses. What an outrage. Again, this extremist agenda continues. But yet, in the face of a 13-year-old being shot to death in the District of Columbia with a gun, the guns are rampaging across America. Guns of a 6-year-old who shot a teacher, mass murders more extensive in this last year, 2022, than ever. There's not a real effort to ensure that guns are not proliferating in the hands of those who should not get them. Guns that should actually have penalties for those who do not store it, penalties for manufacturers who do not indicate and label and insist that guns be stored, or in fact the universal background check that has not been able to be passed. These are things that could save lives of living individuals who are now at the brunt end of gun violence. Yes, putting guns in the hands of people that should not have them, having better mental health services, red flag laws. But the way the bill was written, you have to opt in. So states like Texas, they will not opt into a red flag law to protect people. And all I see in my area, not because police are not working as hard as they can, but domestic violence with guns, day after day after day and week after week, because guns are in the hands of the wrong people. And so, Mr. Speaker, I stand here today to say there's a lot of good work we can do together. There's a lot of good work that Democrats have done, and we're seeing it in the bipartisan infrastructure bill and dealing with climate change, which is evident by the tragedy that is happening to our friends in California. But I'm glad to stand up here today and announce something really good, that today, because of Democrats, the Social Security recipients will have an 8.7% increase in their COLA. And I will go home over the weekend and over these days and into Martin Luther King's celebration, where he believed in lifting the least of those, and be able to say to those Social Security recipients, you've got an 8.7% increase in your COLA because of Democrats and President Biden. We intend to do things, to be active on behalf of the American people. We intend to cure problems, not make problems. We intend to help our school children, help our teachers, help our nurses, help our doctors, help those senior citizens who I see in the senior citizens community centers saying, when are we going to get the ability to have a cost of living so that we can live? Because we have been the ones that have helped build this nation. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want my colleagues and the administration to be unafraid of moving forward on H.R. 40. Isn't it time that we assess the impact of slavery in this country? Over 200 years, never been addressed.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
H.R. 40 needs to pass on the issue of studying slavery and developing reparation proposals. I yield back. Thank you, Mr.
The gentlewoman yields back.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Thank you very much. I see that I have my good friend, Mr. Pallone, over on this side, and I thought I would have my good friend from South Carolina, but now I have my good friend from Texas who is here, and I'm sure they understand that everybody who comes to the floor is sincere. The gentlelady from New York and others that have offered their amendments, they are sincere, they are factual, they have knowledge. And I just want to put that into the record so that no one's integrity is challenged. I am sincere. And I believe that we need to have a little history lesson as to what the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is all about. It exists first and foremost as an emergency response tool that the President can use should the United States be confronted with an economically threatened disruption in oil supplies. It is also where oil can be released from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve under exchange arrangements similar to loans with private companies. Exchange contracts provide for a loan of crude oil to be repaid in kind within a certain time frame and with additional petroleum barrels. However, as we move toward an increasing respect for climate change, I think amendments have to be in place that strategically allow for the utilization of this reserve to decrease emissions, to provide relief in emergencies, and to understand that we must have a 21st century strategic petroleum reserve. Let me cite for you when this reserve has been used. 2005 Hurricane Katrina sale, 1991 Operation Desert Storm, 1990 Desert Storm Shield Test, 2006 Ship Channel Closure Exchange, 2006 Barge Accident Exchange, 2005 Hurricane Katrina Exchange, 2000 Heating Oil Exchange. Again, it is doing what it's supposed to do. At the same time, I believe it's important to modernize the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I have a very simple amendment, and my amendment would preserve exchanges that occur and protect the nation from gasoline shortages and likely much higher fuel prices following natural disasters. We have had many, and I cannot for the life of me understand the opposition to what President Biden did, where we have heard complete silence about high gasoline prices. And so it is important in Amendment number 35 that we have the ability to help those desperately suffering from natural disasters that certainly occur in the Gulf, but they also occur on the Atlantic, they occur in the Pacific, and we need to be able to help the American people. I ask my colleagues to support Jackson Lee Amendment number 35 that would preserve exchanges that occur to protect the nation from gasoline shortages in the likely face of the terrible natural disasters that have hit our American citizens or our country in various reasons. With that, I reserve.
Response to the deadly opioid and fentanyl crisis by including a policy statement directing resources to combat fentanyl and opioid abuse. It also includes efforts to secure the border and reduce the supply of harmful drugs into the nation. You know, it's sort of ironic that this amendment claims our budget includes, quote, funding cuts that stifle life-saving biomedical innovation. President Biden and Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act established government price setting for medicines in Medicare, restricting seniors' access to innovative cures and therapies. This has stifled patients' hope for new drugs, especially for pediatric and rare disease patients. Even the CBO's nonpartisan analysis concluded the Inflation Reduction Act will lead to fewer medicines reaching patients. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit this article from the Wall Street Journal detailing how Democrats' drug price setting policies are already killing new development of cures and therapies into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is unnecessary. It ignores the budget commitment to life-saving biomedical research and innovation and investment in public health priorities, including our response to the opioid crisis. I urge a no vote on the amendment, and I yield back the balance.
I thank my friend from Oklahoma and yield 1 minute for closing comments. And after this amendment, we're going to pause for everyone to go vote and come back here at 2:30, if you would, please. Ms. Sheila Jackson Lee, 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so very much. There's nothing that has been offered in opposition to, in complete clarity, suggest that the draconian cuts that are occurring will not stifle life-saving biomedical innovation, worsen ongoing public health crises and mental health, opioid use, HIV, AIDS, and health disparities, and in particular, women's health. The opponent has no basis on that. We know that if you make these kinds of cuts, you will interfere with and absolutely undermine these very specific programs. But let me also add the crisis that I face in my state of Texas. I've joined Congressman Doggett in a letter that has asked CMS to stop Texas from eliminating people based on procedural errors, their errors. We lost 100,000 people off of Medicaid because of Texas errors on the procedure. And just a few days ago, 24,000 children lost Medicaid. When you make these kinds of overall cuts, you don't know what havoc you're creating. This draconian shutdown budget is creating havoc, and you're taking health care from hardworking Americans, including those like the UAW workers, the writers in California, and any other worker who's out there every day trying to support their families. I ask my colleagues to support the Jackson Lee amendment. We try to put the House back together again. We try to rebuild the house that has been torn down. We try to help men and women and families have their lives saved. And I ask support for this amendment.
The question is on agreeing to the amendment offered by Ms. Jackson Lee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Chairman, as I ask for a roll call, may I ask unanimous consent to put this letter to CMS on September 19, 2023 into the record?
Absolutely, without objection,
And a
so
roll call
ordered.
vote.
And we will roll call according to the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Later on in the markup. Now, the committee will now recess, subject to the call of the chair. We'll see you back here at 2:30.
Hi.
Hi. We were just asking. This is the pool.
Pool for all the networks.
Pool for all the networks, yes.
We just make sure we're...
So, what is the plan today, or going on right now?
Well, this is a very difficult time for the American people. That's really the priority of Democrats, and it should be clearly stated over and over again. Democrats have never wanted the government to shut down. Our Democratic leader has been consistently engaged or ready to engage with the Speaker to be able to proceed as the agreement occurred in the spring, and that was with the President, the Speaker, and the Senate on the numbers that we would use and how we proceed with our appropriations. You cannot engage when you have an unreliable negotiator, and you cannot engage when you have a conference driven by MAGA Republicans. My worry is for cities and counties, for mothers and fathers and children, and that's what Democrats are going to be working on. And so we are going to the floor now to hear the rest of the debate. We're reviewing the document that was thrown on us in the last hour, and we're going to do what is right for the American people.
Congresswoman, is it your understanding that the caucus wants to wait to see how the Senate vote plays out before deciding how to vote on the CR that's been offered by Republicans?
We are in discussions. I'm not going to divulge how we want to proceed, but I will tell you that we know that the Senate will be voting at 1 for cloture, and all the documents have to be reviewed. Anything that impacts millions of federal employees, the United States military, Social Security, teachers, child care, Head Start, we've got to take a serious look at this. But the main point is that Republicans got on this train recklessly and have driven this reckless train into a train wreck, which is a shutdown. We, the Democrats, want to stop it, and that's what we're going to try and do right now.
So how do you plan on voting?
I plan on engaging with the caucus and making sure that we find a unified decision.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to run where other people are.
Let me first of all ask to put into the record the information about Washington being #1 in police per capita and the amount of money spent on crime.
Without objection.
Thank you. Let me, again, the stories were horrific, and crime victims, there should be zero tolerance, and we all have to come together to make that happen. I am, to Mr. Jablonski, to watch your little one. I know what that means to you. Thank you for your courage to come here today, sir. Thank you,
Congressman.
Thank you. Let me try to get our hands around what we need to do. So let me just get right to the heart of things, Ms. Apia. What is the district doing to address violent crime? What is the district doing to address carjackings?
Sure. So we describe the ecosystem because it's important, and so the district's making investments in all of those spaces. The first is prevention. I agree with Mr. Pemberton that obviously enforcement is important, but to us, I have a public health background. Preventing crime is the best way to have less victims. So there's been significant investments made in violence intervention and prevention, which we're grateful for the investments that were made through the American Rescue Plan Act, which allowed us to put funds into violence interruption services and also victim services. The district grants $100 million worth of grants to providers, community-based providers.
But you're not thwarting or stopping your police from engaging right on the streets, arresting and bringing in carjackers.
That's correct. There are a number of policing strategies. All of these have to work together. So
and you are respecting the police for them to do their job.
Mayor Bowser is that you will find no mayor who is more supportive of the police than Mayor Bowser.
What is the greatest challenge for the district's ability to respond to violent crime?
One of it is the complexities of our federal local system. You heard Mr. App describe information sharing. We know that even law enforcement strategies like focused deterrence or otherwise work when the entities all work together. We don't have one governor.
My staff is making note of that right now. There's no reason there should not be information sharing. Let me move quickly, if you don't mind. I've got a short period of time. You enacted emergency legislation in July that changed the landscape of prosecutions. Do you want to just let us know how that is happening? And is that the same legislation as the prioritizing public safety emergency amendment?
That's correct.
So I want to hold up that this is law.
Correct.
Can you just give us a snippet? I've got so many other questions I want to ask Mr. App.
It increases the presumption for pretrial detention, which has led to more people being held pretrial. It increases penalty for things like unlawful discharge of a firearm. There's things related to pretrial detention for juveniles, which we know is an issue. There also was a companion bill that clarifies the ability of law enforcement to pursue in a manner consistent with safe policy.
Okay. Does the declination rate, is that coming down? Because the U.S. Attorney said it is.
I can't speak on behalf of the U.S. Attorney, but we are seeing more holds for those with gun crimes, so we can make, I can't say causation, but certainly a correlation.
So you have strong gun laws, but your surrounding neighbors don't. And so the issue is you don't block any citizen from having their guns,
That's correct.
legal guns, but what you're seeing is the gun trafficking on the street.
That's correct.
And how does that happen?
So we have significant gun trafficking from our neighbors in Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. That is where the illegal flow of guns into the district is. So working with our partners like ATF and FBI and our federal partners is deeply important to help us stop gun trafficking and the flow of guns.
So you are committed to fighting gun trafficking and carjacking, things that, and robberies on the street.
Without equivocation, we are.
And so the alcohol, tobacco, and firearm, and FBI, for those acronyms may not be familiar, they can do a lot more, or you can work a lot more with them. Is that my understanding?
That's correct.
Mr. App, let me first of all very quickly indicate that correction of Mr. Stimson. There is no mandatory minimum for gun possession in the federal laws, but there is a mandatory minimum in D.C. They're not weak on crime in many instances, but they do have to help their victims and stop that. Mr. App, why don't you explore your COVID pandemic concept? Because I agree with you. And though you say that crime here is huge, but just explain that concept about the surge in crime across America.
Sure. So
The gentleman's time has expired, but you may answer the question, Mr. Abt.
You may answer the question, madam. Thank you.
Sure. So in 2020, we had one of the largest single-year increases in homicide across the country that we've ever seen, approximately 28%. And as I said, no jurisdiction or almost no jurisdiction was spared, regardless of political affiliation. Violent crime rose again the following year, was flat in 22, and is now slightly coming down, thankfully. And as I said, most experts agree on generally 3 reasons for this surge in crime. Although Mr. Stimson is correct that there was a surge in crime in 2016 as well. But focusing on this 2020 surge, it was the pandemic itself, unrest following the murder of George Floyd, and this massive surge in gun sales. All 3 of these things together contributed to pushing the rates higher, and as we get farther from that, they seem to be decreasing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses. Thank you for your presence here.
Thank you, gentlelady. I yield and now recognize the gentlelady from Texas, the ranking member, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for your courtesies, and thank you to my colleagues that are here, Ranking Member Nadler, Congresswoman McBath, Congresswoman Dean, and we are pleased that the District of Columbia Representative Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton is present today. Make as many efforts to hear her voice. Let me be very clear. We're in the midst of disarray. We have no speaker. And for those of you who watch Democrats come in, we're in a very serious caucus meeting, which is our responsibility. So please forgive us for any short delay that you may have seen. It is no offense intended. And the first thing I want to say is to those who've been victims of crime, that there is no greater responsibility for those of us in Congress, those of us in local government, those of us who will lead cities, and those of us who lead cities, to realize that our people, the people there, are our greatest responsibilities. I want to be a problem solver and a crime fighter. And so, having lived here even before I was a member of Congress and enjoyed the blessings of being a resident of the District of Columbia or working in the District of Columbia, I can assure you I have a great affection for this city, separate and apart of its historic responsibility or role as the capital of the United States, which I tell all of my elementary school children about how important Washington is. But I do want to say that we need to be serious about what has happened to you as a victim. And my colleagues seem to want to exaggerate not your injury and the fear, but the idea that we were also attacked on January 6, 2021, when there were no voices from my friends on the other side of the aisle about the violence that came into the city, and no interest in voting for the commission that we were trying to put forward. So I want to make sure that when this hearing gets through, that we have solutions for you, and that we either work with federal funds, which I know that your member is working on. But as I do so, let me be very clear, this is a challenging moment. We embrace our victims. We want them to be, in essence, never victims again, but protected in the status that they're in. But in the record, I must place that 10 cities that employed the most police officers per capita in 2022, Washington, D.C., 542.91 per 100,000. Doesn't need residents. Doesn't mean not more are needed. It means we need to work together. The 10 cities that spent the most on policing per resident in 2022, Washington, D.C., number 1, $751.62 per person. So we need to find a way to get to the core of the violence, the violent criminals off the street. This uptick in crime is concerning, not only for the residents who call this city home, especially in the areas of the city that bear the brunt of the most violence, but also for the millions of visitors who come to experience its rich history, culture, its warmth, and important political institutions. That's why I hope we will have a genuine discussion today that focuses on solutions. We can't win by finger pointing. We are in the midst of finger pointing now, and we have no speaker. It is essential that Congress prioritize the safety and security of those who live, work, and visit the district by ensuring that federal government, we must do our part. And I am a big believer in federal resources matching local resources for your safety. The District of Columbia is unique in many ways, and one of them is the complex relationship it shares with the federal government. While its status as the nation's capital brings many benefits, it also brings many challenges. We're in here every day as guests, but we also create an extra financial burden. In combating violent crime, the District of Columbia has taken a multifaceted approach that includes passing emergency legislation supported by the mayor that filled in gaps in pretrial detention procedures for violent criminals. You're holding more of these criminals now, bolstering law enforcement programs and recruitment, implementing community policing initiatives, and instituting a juvenile curfew in certain hotspots. And we know that we have to work with juveniles. We know they're in the midst of juveniles going forward into the 20s, are those who are in the mix, and those in the late 20s are the ones with mostly the gun violent incidences. We understand that. So enhancing the use of technology such as CCTV cameras to combat crime. Additionally, the district has focused on crime prevention strategies such as increased investment in youth programs, education, job opportunities for at-risk individuals. It doesn't help you to say that there is a crime wave across America. Every city has to take responsibility, and I realize that because people are in pain. But the district's response to any type of crime, whether violent or not, can be complicated by overlapping jurisdictions and responsibilities between local and federal law enforcement. I want to find a smoother way of finding that common ground that they can work together along with your distinguished member of Congress. We know that the federal government's presence in the district, while providing unique opportunities for collaboration, also creates challenges. We want to, for instance, despite the obvious needs for agencies from both governments to work together and share information vital to public safety, like the identity of an individual suspected of committing multiple robberies, communication between the two agencies or entities can be stymied by legal red tape. Let's stop that. That's why it's crucial for Congress to ensure coordination and communication among the multiple agencies that possess jurisdiction over different areas of the criminal justice system. I hope our witnesses today will offer solutions, establish greater coordination and cooperation between the local and federal law enforcement. We must also consider the resources required to combat violent crime. Get violent criminals off the street is what we all should collectively want to do. Wraparound services and helping those who can get out of the criminal mindset, get them away from this and you don't see them again. Let's not eliminate that opportunity. Let's deal with mental health services that may also be engaged. Both the local and federal governments must continue to allocate sufficient funding, investment, resources for law enforcement agencies, crime prevention programs, community initiatives, and if, as they perceive, the local government, the needs for additional law enforcement officers. Public safety. Helping to strengthen these vital institutions will support the district's ability to address the underlying causes of violent crime. I spoke with the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Matthew Graves, who lives in the district, loves this city, and will have the same impact on him as any other person that may be subject to the acts of a violent criminal. He is using every tool that he has available to address violent crime, including carjackings, robberies, as well as the flow of illegal guns in the city from states from Virginia and Georgia. I did not hold up on the inquisition that I gave of him yesterday in a very lengthy conversation. He assured me that they are at a point where 90% of the individuals arrested for the most serious violent crimes, which are homicide, carjacking, rape, and assault with intent to kill, are being prosecuted. You also noted that a significant decrease in number of cases that his office chooses not to prosecute after inheriting a decline rate of 70%. He is working to get rid of that number and to prosecute cases. So there is a stitching together and a work, but we must do a lot to help move forward the crime lab, get it on its feet, and get it where it is moving cases forward. We can be helpful in that, and I hope the Congresswoman will allow us to be helpful or to instruct us how best to do that. As Democrats continue to offer solution after solution to make all American communities safer to work. It is important that we rid the streets of illegal firearms. Let's not make light of that. Hold offenders accountable, address the root causes of violence, such as poverty and housing instability and addiction. And Republicans have yet to join us on all of these issues. We can't just point the finger. We've got to work on all of them. The surge in violent crime in the district is a problem. I want to hug every victim, but I would like to say, I don't want you to be a victim. I don't want victims in Houston, Texas. I want to make sure that we get to this point where we live safely in the nation and in our communities, so we can establish stronger partnerships, sharing information, and as well, making sure that we are together as not only Washingtonians, that we are now, but as Americans. Mr. Chairman, I'm yielding a second to Congressman Eleanor Holmes Norton. I'm yielding you a moment just to comment on the record. You're going to yield to her? All right.
She's good. Yeah, she will be yielded time.
She'll be yielded. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Chairman, Ranking Member Nadler. By establishing this ability to work together, my goal here is to sit here and listen to you with respect, and my mind will be calculating how we continue to work with you, your mayor, your law enforcement, your Washingtonians, your excellent member of Congress, and the federal government to do what we're supposed to do, which is to ensure the national safety of the American people. With that, I yield.
I now recognize the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Sheila Jackson Lee.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you to you and the ranking member for holding an important discussion. And I think it is important to establish the heinousness of the attacks by Hamas and the violence shown. And we in America should be steadfast and in front of the outrage of anti-Semitism and the violence that it generates. And we must ensure as well that as this nation respects all faith, that we tolerate no violence against any faith, including Muslim Americans. And I think in this committee, we want to have the homeland protected, and we want to be able to be honest and speak to those issues as very important, that we protect against such violence should not be tolerated. I am grateful, Mr. Warwick, for your presence here and all the other witnesses, and may I start with you on this whole concept of Iran using the forward defense. One would call that cheating and hiding. Cheating by having violence perpetrated, but hiding behind other groups. And forward defense is a nice foreign affairs term, but I think that is what it is. And so can you dig a little deeper into that strategy? And that is using Hezbollah, using Hamas, and other terrorist groups, and Iran either funding, directing, giving strategy, training, and how dangerous that is. And as a Homeland Security Department, Homeland Security Committee, how much attention we should give to that issue.
So I know the nuclear file gets a lot of attention, but in fact, Iran's use of proxies, that is to say, its use of military forces not under the control of the national government of the country in which they're located, is actually one of the gravest threats that Iran poses to the region, and it's the way Iran is trying to project its power against Israel and our Arab partners. This is therefore something that needs to be addressed in the most serious possible way, and very much should be the focus of a bipartisan, sustainable strategy against Iran that does not oscillate no matter who controls the White House or the Houses of Congress. We need the same bipartisan, sustained approach that succeeded so well for us in the Cold War against the Soviet Union, and the bipartisanship we see in our approach towards China today. We need to have the same bipartisanship in our approach to the threat that Iran poses through proxies and surrogates like Hamas and Hezbollah.
We cannot turn our backs on that. We cannot ignore. And they can possibly recruit other groups and utilize them. The State Department has called them the leading proponent of terrorism. How much do you think Iran knew about Hamas' October 7th bloody attack?
They may not have known the exact day and hour of the attack, but they helped fund, train, and equip and provide facilities for Hamas to carry out some of its deadly attacks. So as everyone on this panel agrees, they are as responsible as anyone other than Hamas's own leadership in the deaths that were suffered on October 7.
I think that should be loudly pronounced. So let me take you to this point. I think you will recall during the Obama administration, a very serious decision was made, an agreement was made regarding its nuclear assets. I can tell you that the members that were here, included myself, we had books and books of materials. We went into any number of briefings. We wanted to make sure that every line that we could ask, every question, every nuance was pursued, and finally felt that the agreement was the best way to go. And so my question to you is, you mentioned in your testimony that Iranian cyber attacks went down while they were beholden to the Iran nuclear deal and other aspects of their bad behavior. If Iran was following the guidelines, then can you just explore that concept, that there was an impact, and whether or not, and we probably, I hate to say the door is closed, but what kind of future potential any of that has, but mainly there was an impact.
Yes, it's important to understand Iran's peculiar sense of symmetry. It makes it understandable, and it should help guide us in our efforts to defend the homeland, because anything done to the Iranians, they'll find some way to do something similar to the United States. And this is why I say that deterrence doesn't work, but raising our defenses does.
And so your next steps for this committee would be what?
We have to encourage the American people to do more on cybersecurity, the private sector in particular. In many businesses, the small businesses, the backbone of our country, do not have enough cybersecurity protection. It's important for the American people to increase our cyber defenses. I'm not worried about the big, Amazon, Google, those companies. I'm worried about the medium and small businesses and what each of us individually can do.
Thank you. I yield.
Ready. Well, that was Sheila Jackson Lee. You know what I'm saying? I think she did probably almost 40 years of service. Like I said, I ain't really know too much about her. I mean, I've seen her a few times, you know what I'm saying, get into the squabbles and stuff on the floor and stuff, but never really had a chance to really check out her real work. Separating parties and things like that kind of mess things up, you know what I'm saying? You don't really get a chance to really look at folks. But, I'll be reviewing her probably this week since this is just happening, you know what I'm saying? And check out the woman's great work and all the accomplishments she has done. So, let's be proud of this black woman. You know what I'm saying? Black power up in the house. No matter what side she represents. So we're going to prove that we're better all the way around and give this woman a salute. We not, no bashing, no nothing. We ain't going to be throwing no shots. Just straight get a woman the respect she deserves. And that's how we're going to win it all. Just keep doing it right. So, with that being said, we're going to give another moment of silence to close this out. And I will check y'all out in a few hours. Peace.